I can hear something calling. It's calling me every day. If taking a chance is a crime, then I've got hell to pay. I've been walking the streets in my mind, trying to find a new day. Keep on searching until I will find, until I find a new way. I'm gonna say something, I hope you don't mind. It's time to rearrange. I walk round in circles, I'm going nowhere. It's time to make a change.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am your host, Charles Wallace, and welcome to the Bear Essentials podcast. As we continue on our journey to build a stronger community, I'm very excited to share with you all the Kindness Alliance, which is a unique, free of charge advertising initiative looking to support businesses that share in our core values. Each episode will look to spotlight a different member, celebrating their contributions and dedication to kindness. Would you like to get involved? Just visit the Kindness Alliance section on our website, www.thebearessentialspodcast.com, or just send me a message. And now, a huge thank you to this week's Kindness Alliance member.
Black Pad Coffee Company. Awesome coffee, supporting awesome dogs. Go grab some today at their website, www.blackpadcoffee.com.
Hey, Steven, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Charles, thank you so much for having me, man. I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I personally, I was connected with you through my wife and daughter, so I'll give them a shout out. They made it a point to tell me that I had to have Steven on the show. So I started looking at some of your content and I said, you know what? They're right. He's perfect for the show and what it's all about. So thanks for that. That being said, I'll allow you the brief introduction of yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, and shout out to them. And I always appreciate, people who follow my content sharing it. So that's incredible. And here we are. So something worked, right? But yeah, so I'm a fitness guy. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Steven Campolo. I'm really known for being 100 pounds overweight. So a big story that I like to share on social media is my weight loss journey. I started my own fitness journey about 20 years ago in 2004. So I grew up as the fat kid, grew up on Long Island, New York, in an Italian home. And, I put on some pretty serious weight. And by the time I was about 14, 15 years old, I decided, all right, it's time to make a change here. I was starting to go through puberty, starting to, get interested in the opposite sex. And I just realized being fat was not going to cut it. And I was going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. And I just couldn't have that happen. So I decided to undergo this, fitness transformation almost 20 years ago. I made every mistake in the book you could imagine. I did everything the wrong way because, back then there was no YouTube, there was no social media, or really, easy ways like there is today to get good information as far as what to do, what not to do. So I did everything the wrong way, but I've been on this journey for over 20 years now. And I wish I could say I do have it all figured out, but I don't. I am still learning, and science is always changing on what's the best diet, what's healthy, what's not healthy. So I've changed my opinion a lot over the years, but I've tried almost everything out there, from intermittent fasting to the keto diet to the carnivore diet to you name it, I've done it. So I feel like I have a pretty good in-depth understanding of what is going to help people get in shape and lose weight. And that pretty much brings me to what I do. I'm a full-time fat loss coach, and I've been doing that full-time now for the last 5 years. So, it's been an incredible journey, and it's been fun, exciting. And yeah, again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think what really stood out to me about you and what you're doing is, Steven, I think it's really relatable. I think that makes a big difference. And I think the fact that you come at it from a perspective of, you obviously know what you're talking about, but it has a different way that it hits. And I think it's a compliment to you, the way you're going about things. And I think people, like I said, are more relatable to it. So I know it goes back a little bit, but maybe could you tell us some of the initial steps you took, and, to lose weight, and, what's the foundation for what you do now and the success you're having now.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to kind of highlight a few things you said about just kind of being relatable, right? So when I first kind of got on the social media scene, I really like didn't want to do it for a while because I didn't want to be one of those, all these fitness people are a dime a dozen today. And, I hate to say it, but I feel like a lot of them are kind of full of BS. They're trying to push their supplement or their program or buy my this or buy my that. So for a long time, I resisted it. And then one day I just had this epiphany, like, you know what? I feel like I have a good story. I feel like I have some knowledge to really share with people because everyone I was seeing, you have all these in shape guys with six packs and they're probably pushing drugs too, who look incredible. But there was really no one that related to me. And I was a guy that struggled with my weight. I struggled with food addiction. I struggled with binge eating. It's something that I talk about. I actually gave a TED talk about this about 5 months ago at Columbia College in South Carolina, talking about my food addiction and my binge eating and how it almost killed me. So I think just really, honing in that message and really being super vulnerable with my story has really allowed your average person who maybe is 50 pounds overweight or 100 pounds overweight, who has struggled with food and has struggled with, emotional eating. It allows them to be like, you know what, this guy, he gets it. And he, I relate to him and he went through this process. He, came out the other side of it. Maybe there's hope for me as well. So I think relatability is very, very important, especially if you're going to follow someone online. You want to have that relatability with them as well. So going back, so when I first started my journey, again, I didn't really know what I was doing. I had always seen Rocky was getting ready for a fight. He would always run. So I'm like, all right, well, hey, if it's good enough for Rocky, it's good enough for me. So every night I would just run. That's all I knew how to do was just run, run, run. So every night I would go out on the, in the winter time in New York, and I would go run. And it was hard, it was challenging at first. But the weight came off pretty quickly. I was also restricting myself a lot with my food. I was just eating chicken and broccoli, pretty much every day. So again, I did things like very, very extreme, and I don't recommend this. And I tell people all the time, do not do what I did, because I lost a lot of weight quickly. But, ultimately I also didn't build any muscle because I was essentially starving myself, doing a ton of cardio. So I wasn't building the physique that I envisioned in my mind when I first started. I kind of had this idea like, okay, once I lose the weight, I'm going to look fit. I'm going to look athletic. I'm going to have muscle. But the truth is that I didn't look that way. I had a lot of loose skin. I lost about 100 pounds in 6 months, which is pretty extreme, which is pretty quick. But when you do that, you look like a melted candle. You have a bunch of loose skin. You have like these saggy man boobs, these love handles, this saggy belly. And that's what led me to start researching, well, how do I fix this problem now? Because I was really insecure as a fat kid, but now I'm just as insecure being the skinny fat guy, right? I look okay with the t-shirt on, but as soon as I take my shirt off, it's like, it's not a pleasant sight. So I started to do some research, started to buy the muscle magazines, and my dad actually, he started taking me to the gym with him. We had a gym that was, 5 minutes up the road from our house. So little by little, just started transitioning into learning how to work out with weights. And around this time, I don't know if you remember, this is about 2005, the Pumping Iron remake came out on DVD. So my dad bought me the DVD, and here I was watching Arnold Schwarzenegger, training for the Mr. Olympia, like back in the 70s. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so freaking cool. Because at that age, when you're, 14, 15, 16 years old, you want to be the alpha macho man, right? All you care about is getting big and strong and, not having people bully you. So that's really what I related to. And I wanted to build my body in that way. So that was almost like the launching pad for me to start lifting weights and learning, how to eat properly. And that's really how it all started.
Yeah, it's obviously I'm a little older than you, but yeah, I do remember that. And I think even for me, being a child of the 80s, all those action heroes from the 80s, it was, I remember lifting weights with the sand in them. You had to put sand in them or water in them, and you didn't, no clue what we were doing, just go try to lift weights. Now the science has definitely evolved, and it's thanks to people like you who are putting good information out there. Stephen, I did want to ask you, you mentioned about your family a little bit, your dad, but was there any growing up? I think I had saw something. You did have some adversity growing up. Could you talk about that a little bit?
You mean like the bullying and just like getting picked on, things like that?
Yeah, and I think I want to make sure I get this right because something about your mother. Did your mother was there?
Yes. So that actually happened later.
Okay,
So I'll address both those things. So
okay,
growing up, just kind of being the overweight kid, getting picked on, bullied. I mean, I was always the type of guy that like I would always fight back. Whereas like if someone bullied me, I'd be like, hey, if the worst thing to me, I didn't mind getting called fat, but if someone called me, hey, fat boy in front of other people, now it was like really embarrassing because I just got made fun of and these other people were around to hear it, right? So my mom had to come down to the school a bunch of times because I would be fighting the kid that picked on me after school, right? So, there was typical, bullying from kids. But like I said, I always kind of handled it on my own, whether that's right or wrong, I'll let other people decide, but I just always stood my own ground with that. Now, when it comes to my mom, yes. So my mom actually, she had gotten cancer in my mid 20s. So this is years down the road to kind of bring people up to speed. So grew up on Long Island, New York. Started undergoing this fitness transformation, and then when I was about 15 years old, I was halfway through my sophomore year of high school. My parents decided to move to Florida. So, as you can imagine, for any kid, going from one school now to a completely different state and a different school, I think that's also why I kind of leaned on like lifting weights and leaned on that because I wanted to, just like get big and strong to make sure that if I went to this new school, if there were any issues there or, as the new kid usually gets picked on, like I'm going to have to handle this myself. Right. So that was also kind of my thought process there. But when I was about 16, 17 years old, getting ready to graduate high school, my dad got me a job at Gold's Gym. So I would go to school during the day and then I would go to Gold's Gym after school. And, that was great for me because now I was around like, all these personal trainers and bodybuilders and I could absorb all this information. Because even though I was lifting weights now, I still really didn't know like what I was doing or maybe how to properly train. So my dad was gracious enough to hire a bodybuilding coach at the gym to start coaching me and training me. So this guy really taught me how to lift weights properly, how to eat properly, and that was probably one of the biggest leaps in my entire life as far as fitness goes because now I had someone who was a pro bodybuilder who knew exactly how to really elevate my physique. And then we decided to do a teen natural bodybuilding show when I was about 17 years old. So in a period of 2 years, I went from being 100 pounds overweight, at 15 to now stepping on a teen bodybuilding stage at the age of 17, having worked out in it. So it was kind of a cool transformation. But yeah, so my now all this time, just keep in mind, I was really struggling with food, right? Because I was always doing these extreme things. So even getting ready for the teen bodybuilding show, I was on this really strict diet, training, cardio, dieting, only eating certain foods. So I started to develop this really like bad food obsession to where like I was starting to just fantasize about food, right? I couldn't even wait for the show to be over because I'm like, as soon as the show's over, I'm just gonna go crazy, eat all my favorite foods. And I gained about 30 pounds in the following month after the show was over. So I've always had this tumultuous, I don't know if that's a word, tumultuous relationship with food, right? Where it's like I'm either all in on the fitness thing where I'm training and eating healthy, or I'm all completely off the rails, binging and stuffing my face. There was no balance for most of my life. So even though I looked fit on the outside, people would say, "Yeah, this guy's fit," but I knew I had this really bad relationship with food. So even after the bodybuilding show was over, I went to college and I was still working out a lot. I was still like coaching friends for free because I truly loved it. But I really didn't think there was any like career in fitness, right? Because this is what 2006, 7, right? So social media wasn't out yet, or if it was just starting. So I went to business school, and the entire time, again, still training, still living the fitness lifestyle while struggling with this food addiction, binge eating. And then in my mid 20s, my mom got sick. So she was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer and, given a year to live. So that was, that was a pretty life-changing thing for us because we always heard about other people getting cancer, but you never think it's going to hit your own family. And then when it does, it's like your entire world just gets changed, upside down. So I, started to just kind of eat my emotions, binge. I was binging a lot more during that time. And this is when I started getting back into personal training. So having gone to business school, I got my business degree. I didn't want to go into fitness because I felt like I was almost taking a step backwards. So after college, I was working in this corporate, this corporate job, which I absolutely hated. It was a 9 to 5, like, living for the weekends. So during this time, while my mom was sick, one of my good friends was a personal trainer at a country club. He goes, "Hey man, like, why don't you just come personal train with me? The hours are good. You can work from like 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. You'll have plenty of time with your mom. And at least this way you can kind of get things figured out and, see what you want to do. And also, you can meet some great people, because the country club I was a personal trainer at, like, we're training some of the most affluent people in the country who have second homes in Naples, Florida, where I live. So it was a great way to kind of just connect. So I decided to do that. So during this time, my mom was getting treatments, and she was going through this, this cancer process, and she did end up passing away about a year and a half after she was diagnosed. So after she passed, I was kind of just like drifting. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was still personal training just to make some money. But then I decided, you know what, like, I'm just gonna, if anything, I think the gift in seeing my mom pass away early was realizing life is very, very short. She was only 52 years old. So it's like, man, like, life is, anyone could go to the doctor and be given 1 year to live just like that. That's what happened with her. She went for one routine checkup and she left being told, you have 1 year to live. So it's like, looking at life from that different lens, I think it was a gift in a way, because it made me realize, like, all right, life is very short. I want to have the most impact. And I started looking at my life and saying, okay, well, how can I help people, right? How can I help people live longer? How can I help people maybe lose weight, gain confidence, and change their life? And unfortunately, most people today are dying from, health-related illnesses that are lifestyle-based, right? So heart disease is the #1 killer in the country, which is related to poor diet and lack of exercise. So this was around 2017, 2018, where I started to really just start posting on social media, start, spreading my message or sharing what I thought was the best way to lose weight and get in shape. And that's really how things started to, slowly snowball and get to where they are today.
Well, listen, man, honestly, really sorry to hear about your mom. My dad, he's still with us. He just had his last cancer treatment last Friday. So I know that is really tough experience. And, watching you come out of it and looking to just do good and positive vibes out of it for people, trying to help people. I think that's a credit to her and something she would be proud of, man. So really, really kudos on that. And I think we need more of it in this world, Stephen. And I think you're doing a great job. All right. So on that, you mentioned a few things there as far as the fitness aspect. And in our country now, I talk to a lot of people that are in the UK, for example, right? And Stephen, they always are telling me that half the things that are allowed in our food over here, they're not allowed in their food over there.
Sure. Yeah.
So what, from your perspective, the personal training perspective, how much is it, you always hear about the diet, but you hear people, you can't outwork a bad diet. How are you trying to kind of bring it all together for people?
It's really hard. And I wish it was, I get really pissed off a lot of times, because I see a lot of these other fitness people on social media saying, well, just stop eating, right? If someone's obese or overweight or struggle with their weight for their entire life, which most people have, like, no one wakes up one day and they're, 400 pounds or 300 pounds. Like, they usually have, self-medicated with food, right? Like, I've never been an alcoholic. I've never done drugs, but I medicate with food. If I'm feeling crummy about myself, if I'm having a stressful day, if I feel a lack of worth, I know that if I go binge eat ice cream or pizza, I know that I'm going to be able to feel good and get that pleasure and dopamine hit, even if it lasts for a few minutes. And then I feel like crap afterwards, which always happens. But I know at least for a little bit of time, I could get that, that hit from the sugar, right? And when I hear these other fitness people say, well, you don't have a relationship with food, like, just stop eating and move your body more. It's like, okay, well, that sounds great. On paper, yes, that sounds like a very easy plan to follow. Don't eat the crappy food, move your body more. Okay. But the truth is, a lot of people have emotional ties to food, right? And it's been that way for a long, long time. So just saying, hey, eat better and move your body more, like, that's not going to cut it, right? So for a lot of people, I think it's a process, right? And I think it comes down to just starting to create proper habits and trying to just, take the first few steps and say, okay, if I'm a soda drinker, maybe I'll just start by cutting out the soda. You don't have to go extreme right away. You don't have to have this crazy, elaborate plan from day one. If you've never worked out or haven't worked out in years, like it's not a good idea to go start training 5 days a week and, follow this 6 meal a day diet. Like what's realistic for you, right? Like what can you actually do? Can you go for a walk every day? Like, can you at least start moving your body more? Can you at least, like cut out some of the crappy foods and get rid of the junk food in your house? Like, yeah, most people could do that, right? And it's a process. Once you start losing the weight, once you start seeing changes happen, once you start feeling better, then you can move on to the next step and say, okay, well, now maybe I do want to join a gym. I'm ready to start, training, or maybe I'm ready to start, working with a coach, or I'm ready to, getting more dialed in with my nutrition and learning the benefits of maybe having more protein in my diet, right? But I think a lot of people just go way too extreme too quickly, and they go all in and they think they're going to be perfect. And the second they're not perfect, they just crumble and say, I'm a failure, I can't do it. And they just revert back to their old ways, right? So the truth is, it's a process, and it really just comes down to building out habits and trying to stick to it 80% of the time. Like even as a full-time fitness coach, and I just made a post about this on my Facebook 2 days ago. I had a stressful day Wednesday. I ordered a pizza. I ate a bunch of ice cream because, I was just in a bad headspace. And yesterday morning I woke up and saying, all right, well, the damage was done. I got back into the gym and I just kept it moving, right? And it's like, that's going to happen to us all. We're all going to fall short. We're all going to give into temptation. I mean, no one's ever been perfect on their diet, right? So when you lead with that or expect that to be the case when you do start your fitness journey, you're just setting yourself up for failure, and you're setting yourself up for a big disappointment that's going to come inevitably. And I think that's not a good place to be. So that's why I'm very big on like telling people, like, you have to give yourself grace on this journey, because if you go from, let's say someone's binging 3 days, 4 days a week to maybe only binging 1 day a week, well, that's a large improvement, right? So you don't have to fix your binging completely, right? Like, but if we could dial it back to 4 times a week to maybe once a week, well, that's going to have a significant difference on your weight, on how you feel, on your body, all of those things. So I think people just need to start a little bit slower, and you don't have to have everything figured out right away. You don't have to have this big elaborate, plan from the get-go. I think a lot of it is just making a decision that you want to get better, get healthier, and just taking slow steps to get there and staying consistent. Because the truth is, no one stays consistent enough to ever get to their goal, right? Like these things like keto, carnivore, these crazy fad diets that I see, it's like the reason why people might lose weight early on, but then they inevitably gain weight, is because they just can't stay consistent with it, right? They might be able to follow it for a few weeks or a few months, but ultimately, they can't sustain it. So they fall back and regain the weight, and now they're trying to follow the next thing or figure out what's the next diet that's going to help me. So it's just really about getting out of that thought process and just staying consistent and developing the proper habits. It's not sexy or marketable. And I tell people this all the time. Like, I could probably make a lot more money if I made these bold promises to people saying, hey, I could help you lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, or follow my special diet, or take this special supplement. But the truth is, the only thing that matters is consistency, right? Like, follow a plan that you could see yourself following for the rest of your life, that you enjoy, and follow it long enough to see results. And that's really what it comes down to.
Listen, I'm gonna disagree with you on one thing there.
Yep.
I think you're so marketable, man. I think what you're doing is it's fitness for everyone, man. And you're not trying to sell people on false promises. You're looking to be authentic. And I can just tell by this short period of time we've been on, like, I'm enjoying this so much because it comes across as so real and so genuine. So kudos to you for that. So I know we didn't have a lot of time today, but I wanted to end with this, because I think what you're also doing a great job with is from the fitness angle, but you have built a really nice, whether purposeful or not, a nice brand on Facebook, and you do a nice job on adding some humor, making it accessible. People enjoy it. What is what's your goal with that as far as your social media and the brand that you've kind of created? Is it intentional? And are you looking to continue doing it and that going that direction with it?
That's a good question. Nothing I've done has been intentional. I think it's all just been very organic, and it's kind of taken a life of its own because there's a lot of relatability, and people they just click with what I'm saying. So there really hasn't been an intention as far as, oh, I want to build a brand or I want to, grow my followers by X amount. It's just been, I post what I post. If I'm not in the mood to post, I don't post. Like today, Friday, I didn't post anything today because I'm like, I don't really have anything to say. Like I'm not in the mood to post something today. So a lot of it is just by feeling. Like, how do I feel? Do I have something that I feel like sharing? And if I don't, I don't. But I think what's really happened and why things have grown is because I just keep things very raw, real, vulnerable. Like I share my story on how my binging almost killed me 5 years ago. I binge ate an entire jar of peanut butter one night, and I ended up in the emergency room, and I had to have my gallbladder removed because it was about to rupture, and I almost died. That's a true story. And I don't think a lot of people would feel comfortable sharing that because it's kind of embarrassing. And it's like, well, how are you a fitness guy, but you almost died from binge eating? Like, that doesn't make sense, right? But the truth is, again, a lot of the people, the fitness people out there, it's like most of them have an eating disorder. I hate to say it, but it's true. Like most fitness people have an eating disorder because there's this pressure to always feel like you have to look great in a bikini or a bathing suit. And no one wants to talk about this. So I think for me, I think just being my authentic self and sharing things that I struggle with, it allows people to realize that you don't have to, be gifted or talented or have great genetics or, be special to lose weight or get in shape. I mean, I've helped hundreds, if not thousands of middle-aged men and women, moms and dads lose collectively like thousands and thousands of pounds over the last 5 years, right? And these are people that maybe have never worked out a day in their life. They never went to a gym. They never were active. They'd never played sports. They never lived a healthy lifestyle. But one day they just got sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. And, maybe something I said resonated with them. It gave them a little bit of hope. They took action, and then they, changed their life. I have a lot of clients too, middle-aged women that are now like fitness instructors at their gym or personal trainers. And they've been overweight their entire life, right? And now they've literally went from being overweight to like, living the fitness lifestyle and actually helping others and coaching others, which is really inspiring. So, I just think you never know how God is going to use you or your story. And I think a lot of people are afraid to share their vulnerabilities or their struggles. But the truth is, especially today, with social media, it's a very materialistic and fake place. So I think, if someone has a message to share, whether it's fitness or weight loss or drug addiction, alcoholism, like whatever it is, there are people out there that need some hope and need to hear your story, right? And I think the more raw and real and honest you could be, it's going to bring the right people. And that's kind of what's happened with me. And like right now, I'm working on finishing up my second book, which is going to be called Breaking Up with Food, which is all about my binge eating, my struggle with food addiction. And that's really like a passion project that I'm really excited about because that's something that I have experienced firsthand, and it's a lot deeper than just looking better and getting healthy, right? So as far as what the future holds for me, I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and we started, we just started a YouTube channel recently because I do want to start, posting more long form videos and more educational videos there, which don't really. I don't have the ability to post those types of videos on, Instagram or Facebook. So that's something I'm excited about. But yeah, man, I'm just going to keep on rocking and rolling and wherever it goes, it goes.
Yeah, man, you listen, I can't tell you enough. I've been doing this now, the podcast, for 3 years, man. And you really, and Steven, kudos, man. You come across extremely, I shouldn't even say it like that. You're extremely authentic, and I think you're real. And I think that's what I like to speak to people about and try to draw out of them. And you've got that in spades, my friend. And I'm really, really happy that my wife and my daughter actually kind of said, hey, you should check out Steven, because It's good. And you know what? I have to add it real quick, but I got that great recipe, the protein pudding with the yogurt. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's literally my go-to since they told me about it. I probably had it every other day. So, awesome stuff, man. Well, listen,
If any of your listeners want it, tell them to message me and I'll actually send it over to them.
I will absolutely make sure I have plenty of show notes where people can get a hold of you. And because I think people that aren't checking your content out, they're missing out. And I think there's so many people out there that need it, and they need a true representation of fitness and an understanding of what mostly all of us are going through. And I think they don't get that from a lot of what's out there today. And you're doing it in the right way. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And yeah, I'm thankful that your wife and daughter, shared my information with you, and it obviously all came together and worked well. So yeah, thank you for the time. Thanks for asking me to be on. Like it's been a great conversation, and I hope to come back on in the future.
Listen, I definitely want to have you back on in the future, because I feel like as we were talking, I'm like, you know what? There's so much more to go over with you. So I think we'll definitely do it. On that note, though, again, thank you, everybody. Please check out Steven. I'll have everything in the show notes. It's definitely going to be worth your while. So thanks a lot, and take care. Thanks for listening. Steven, you take care. And
thank you, Charles.
Bye.
This has been the Bare Essentials. Thanks for listening. And remember, never hibernate on your goals.